plugging really talented salespeople into really crappy sales systems is not going to work, right? Like, not going to
Recipe
work.
for failure.
Recipe for failure every single time. And so I remember that signal was so clear. And I remember all of us sitting on a deck at a house in Leapers Fork, Tennessee. And we were wrestling with this, and we were basically had to ask ourselves the question, do we need to become a consulting firm? Like, do we need to become a sales coaching company? Because all these businesses that have been churning are churning not because of the salesperson, not because the salesperson sucks. It's because the freaking business doesn't have the sales infrastructure needed to support that salesperson. So now do we have to go address that? So that was a huge pivotal moment for us, and that you talk about signal, we all looked at each other, and I remember the answer to the question of, do we want to be a consulting firm was, hell no.
No. I mean, unanimous. No.
Yeah, no. But we knew we had to fix the problem, right?
Welcome back to Whiskey is for Closers. I'm Craig Johnson, joined as always by our founder, Steve Caton, and Director of Business Development, Drew Epperson.
Let's go!
Quick housekeeping.
Wow.
Our guest, that was loud, Drew.
Yeah.
Our guest canceled today, which is going to turn out to be a gift because we landed somewhere I don't think we could have gotten with a guest in the room. Here's the setup. It's May. Take a look at your year. 5 months ago, in January, you wrote a plan. You had targets. You maybe had pipeline math. You had hires you were going to make, deals you were going to close. Some of you might have had it on a whiteboard, some in Notion or in a document. Some of you maybe scribbled it on the back of a coaster at a kickoff dinner. Now look at the dashboard. How much of that plan is actually happening? Yeah. Same. Right. Most founders we talk to right now are sitting in the same uncomfortable fact. The plan is not the year. And the next move, adapt or hold the line, that's the one that makes or breaks your 2026. December isn't going to save you. May is when the math gets decided. That's the episode. How do you know when it's time to pivot? Why do most founders see it too late? And when you finally see it, what actually has to change? Is it the product? Is it the pricing? Is it the positioning? Is it the customer? Is it the team? Is it you? Probably a combination of all of the above, right? We're going to come through this at a sales angle because that's kind of what we do. It's usually where the symptoms show up first. But this isn't a sales tactics episode. This is an episode about the hardest move a founder ever makes, and the bravest ones make it earlier than the rest. But guys, before we dive into that, what are we drinking today? I mean, Steve, you're in Pensacola, so just lead us off.
Pensacola, baby. Well, I'm drinking something, again, and something I've never had. It was another product of my trip to Total Wine. This is called Walcott. Have you guys ever heard of it? Well,
never heard
apparently
of it.
It comes from the Barton 1792 distillery in Bardstown. Okay. 1792, we're all familiar with that. That's a good everyday staple. That's actually a really solid bourbon. And so the guy that was at Total Wine that turned me onto the Still Austin one I shared last time, he also turned me onto this one, said it was really good for the money. It's like $39. It's very affordable. And it's a bottled in bond, 100 proof bourbon and classic Kentucky bourbon. I will say this: it's a bit harsh. I put a little ice in it to kind of chill it out a bit, and it's better. I don't know. I'm a neat guy. I love to drink my whiskey neat,
Same.
like you guys. It's a little bit harsh for that. It's probably really good in an old fashioned, but I probably wouldn't do it neat again. But I will today. Because I don't have anything to make an old fashioned with here.
King Snake, you get for $39 today? Yeah, man. All right. So King Snake in the house. And my coping mechanism of choice for this week is Blanton's. Because listen, here's the way I look at it. You typically save the good stuff for like really good times. And then there's moments where it's like things are pretty shitty right now. I'm pulling out the good stuff. So I'm pulling out the good stuff in the good
Okay.
times, in the bad times. It's just always a good time. You know what I mean?
Nice, nice.
Nice.
And guys, I went with a staple, some gin and tonic action with a lime.
G&T, baby. G&T.
Yeah, it was just us, so I'm just going with
Hey,
my normal
I was gonna say
go-to.
that's
right?
just straight up Craig. That's straight up Craig right
Yeah.
there.
That's the go-to. That's my drink. And this is Hendrix. I didn't even bring up the bottle. I usually do, but
So
I always
hey,
miss.
since we're having real talk today, the Blantons, is it worth the money? I don't think it is, man. I don't think it is. I think it's overrated.
Listen, here's the deal. The only reason that I have Blanton's in my cupboard is because I have personally gone to Buffalo Trace and
Which
got
is
it
a
for
really cool distillery.
it's a great experience. Plus their Blanton's I think it's $59 or $65 when you get there and buy it from their distillery. So that's
It's worth
the
that.
only reason exactly. It's not worth the
Yeah.
$130, $150. Don't do that.
No, I agree, man. I mean, I like it. It's not. I'm not saying it's a bad whiskey, but it's just the price differential. Like when you compare it against everything else that you can get in the 55 to 65, $75 range, it belongs there, right? So
100%.
yeah, but we got to
Yeah.
go to the Buffalo Trace Distillery sometime, boys. I want to do that.
1,000%.
Let's do
Yeah.
it. We got to
All
do
right.
a bourbon trail run.
Let's do a podcast episode from there.
That'd be awesome.
Great idea.
That'd be amazing.
I know.
Which it's really cool to see how they make like the little toppers that go
Yes.
on all of the. That's really cool.
But yeah, that would be cool.
Okay, so
All right.
so quick warm up. Before we jump into our content, we're going to have confession time. What is the longest you've ever held on to a plan that wasn't working before you admitted it wasn't working? Are we talking hours, days, years? Be honest. The whole episode rises and falls on whether the three of us can be honest in the next 90 seconds. For me, it was
Yeah.
years, by the way.
Years. Wow. Okay. I won't say years, but definitely at least a year, probably at least a year, maybe. I mean, it depends on what you're talking about, right? And like, because there's the plan and then there's tweaking of the plan, right? So which happens.
Yeah, for sure.
But in terms of like a wholesale, that whole just throw the whole thing out and start over kind of a experience, I'd say probably a year, something, and maybe a little over a year, where it was just basically the whole thing had to be scrapped.
Yeah.
So
Drew, how about you?
I find myself in the years, like multiples. And it's interesting because as you started to kind of break that down, Steve, like I was thinking of, you got plans, strategies, things like that. But really, I think what strikes me is the belief in a plan is what can hold you inside of something for an elongated amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Like when you believe in it, because it's easy to look at a piece of paper and go, okay, here's the plan. Let's try it out. Let's kind of see what happens. Easy to pivot. But when you believe in a plan, that belief is what really pulls you down deep and anchors you, maybe is a term there, to go, I'm going to sit in this for however long, right there. And when you have a belief, it doesn't even have a time horizon to it. It's just, I'm in this thing forever, right? I'm not going anywhere. And then that's when you start to look back at times and go, my belief in that plan or in that strategy is what really kept me here for such a long time. I don't know. That's the way I started to think about it.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between belief and hope?
I think, okay, so philosophically, right? Hope, well, Craig, you can speak to hope, but belief and hope, I think hope, I've got thoughts. Craig, I want to hear you. I want to hear your thoughts.
I think belief is the idea. Hope has a plan attached to it. Hope is the evidence of things not seen. I think hope is not blind. I think there's a plan attached to hope. Hope is also built off of experience as well.
I like that.
But I will say, Drew, we'll come back to your thoughts there. Steve, obviously, you know Drew's and my background, which is not the place for this particular podcast episode. But I think when you are building something around an idea that should make a tangible difference in people's lives, it's much more difficult to let it go.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
like, hanging on to it, when I look back and I go, I hung on to something for years that I should have let go of, it was because my belief in the idea was so strong and the investments that others made was so tight. And then when I think about like all the things we're going to rehash today that I think are applicable across the board, you know, when you start something, your identity is tied to that. The idea of failure is not an option. I don't want that tied to my identity, so I'm going to force this to work.
Mm-hmm.
Sunk cost fallacy, like all of those
Yeah.
things. We'll unpack a bunch of that today. But looking back, there were clear signs that you don't have to go down with the ship.
Yeah.
You don't have
You know,
to.
I had a thought, Steve. I think belief is tailored to a person and their experiences and views, where hope is a very human experience that can be shared amongst all different types of people, regardless of socioeconomic background, regardless of all of those labels, right? I think belief is very unique to a certain person, where hope becomes this driving force that becomes very, I guess, unifying, if you will. Beliefs can divide, and I think hope can unite and bring things together. So as I start to think of it in those terms, that's kind of how I start to, I guess, experience that.
Yeah, dude, that's
that's
good. That's good. That's deep and profound. But I think you're
Yeah.
right. When I think about in my, in my career path, when I've been in those situations where I was on going back to what you were saying, Craig, I was on let's call it an airplane that was going down. The thing that kept me on the plane, despite all the lights going off and all the warning signs saying this thing's going down, was what you were saying, Drew. I just had this inherent belief, or very strong belief in the person that was flying the plane, and I deeply hoped that we would pull up, and it just didn't. And then afterwards, there was that. Like you said, Craig, you go back and you look at it and you go, yep, well, there was that, all these things, that we should have known. But belief and hope, like, I think those are such good things. But in that context, obviously, maybe not.
Yeah, I think hope is informed, though, meaning you're pulling in experience, you're pulling in reason, you're pulling in other factors that are informing the hope. So if I look at hope in a business context, a lot of people are like, well, hope is not a plan. I agree, but there has to be an element of, I can see the pathway to get out of where I am right now, and seeing that pathway, I am hoping that I can get to that destination, right?
Yeah,
but there's also other information that's attached to that's informing that hope, not just blindly going, I hope we can get there. Like, there's reasons you're hoping. There's reasons you're hoping.
Okay, and I know, man, this is like, we're going to get into the heart of this thing. But one of the things that so oftentimes this is what I've seen, with myself, thinking about just being reflective, and then also with others that I've worked with, is what happens when you're in that situation and you have hope. Oftentimes what informs the hope and kind of gives it a little bit of a boost is you get some wins, and you get some wins that come in that go, oh, yes, see, this does work. This is the right plan. But they're false positives at the end of the day. But they feed the hope.
Yeah.
And so it keeps you flying the plane, or trying to, a little longer than probably should.
And I think what's fascinating is, in the family of hope, you know how you've got really good family members, and then you've got like those family members you're totally embarrassed of, that you're like, lock them in a closet, your crazy uncle?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
I think what's interesting, like if I'm flipping that around, in the family member of hope, the crazy uncle is cynicism, because my hope I will write off of hope and then go, what the hell happened, man? Like, I the way this thing was meant to be, I thought, the way that this thing was laid out, the way we experienced things at first just was this fuel. And then all of a sudden you experience some of these negative things, and that hope can quickly turn into, I'm never doing that again. Well, I got bit once. I'm never going to go back to that type of thing again. And then you become this cynic that constantly looks at all the things and then future opportunities that are there to design to bring that hope back gets fleshed out and filtered through this cynicism that does nothing more than just kill and destroy and ruin every type of fuel that you can possibly think to help you go out and make a difference.
Yeah. So to kind of lay the groundwork here, guys, every business goes through seasons. And those can be driven by just the stage of the company, the age of the company, what's happening within the marketplace. There are lots of factors that can tie into all of that. And as we look at the journey of Altezza, we have definitely had multiple iterations within our growth trajectory, right? We've gone flat. We've had really good growth. To date, thankfully, we have not had the dip, but we have had fairly steady growth since the beginning of the company. But at the end of the day, often we're still chasing the goals that we put out there because we put pretty high goals. So sales numbers are usually the canary in the coal mine. But what signals start to tell a leader this isn't working and it's more than a slow month?
Yeah, I
Thoughts?
mean, it's got to absolutely. It's like you hinted at it right there, Craig, when you said it's not just a slow month, right? It's a stacking of months, month after month after month after month, where the trend doesn't change, right? And the trend can either be a downward trend or it could just be a flattening, a plateau. And so we see this a lot with the businesses that we talk to. And honestly, Altezza was built to help these businesses get off of the first or second plateau that they're going to naturally hit. Some of the plateaus are just a normal, natural, kind of almost like a law of physics, right? It just happens. So what the signs I think that you look for to suggest that's plateaued, you're plateaued and it's time to potentially reinvent and break it and start with something new, is that the sales results are a lagging indicator, right? So when we look at the sales income, like closed deals, revenue in the door, that's lagging. And that's what we pay attention to. That's what we look at. But there's so much other crap that's happening before that that we need to pay attention to. And so those are the signals I think you're asking about, right, Craig?
Yeah. Think about this. If I were to just list off a bunch of stuff, what resonates with you guys or what maybe is missing here. So things like the pipeline is really full, but nothing's closing, or deals are closing, but they're not really the best type of deals, right? The wrong ICP keeps showing up, or our average deal size keeps shrinking, or activities are happening, right? But the numbers don't actually move. The pipeline's not building, or churn is just creeping, or our best customers stop giving us referrals, which is really hard to track or notice sometimes, or the team stops coming to you with questions or problems. They just kind of curl up into a shell, or, your gut, your intuition is going, something's off, and you just keep telling it to shut up. Are there other things that maybe come to mind, or what resonates out of that for you guys?
One of the things that actually, as you were talking, how I always like analogies, but how when you're in a relationship and somebody breaks up with you and it's the whole, it's not you, it's me, right?
Did you ever do that, Drew?
Yes.
Did you ever have that done to you?
Maybe. But I think about that in terms of when I start to hear, hey, you told me, okay, so-and-so, you said to reach back out mid-month and to see if you're ready to go. And you get things like, hey, after our conversation, it really got me thinking we really need to take a look internally and start to address. And And I'm not saying that's like 100% a bad thing. Obviously, I think those are good things, but I think there's something else to be said about what's going on in that process when you start to get that kind of feedback, right? It's like, hey, no, 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 it's not you. Love you. You're great. You're amazing. It's me. We're jacked up. We got a lot of things we gotta. Okay, but it can't not be me because we're here to help fix that jacked up part, right? Like, we're here to make sure you don't continue to keep recycling these problems. So what's the issue? Right? That to me starts to signal like dash lights are going off, going, so you're telling the cure that I've got the issue, I've got the disease, and I know you've got the cure, but that cure isn't supposed to be the thing right now. I need to go back and figure out how I cure myself. It's like, no, 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 that's not how this thing works. Lights on the dashboard start to go off. So that's kind of what I was thinking.
There's been this, I think, a theme in our journey as a company of reinventing and reinventing sales, right? Steve, as you kind of think back to the earlier days of Altezza, what was, one of the pivotal moments or earliest signals, I think maybe even unpack the idea of signal versus noise, that first told you something needs to change because of the season we're in right now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'll start with the signal versus noise piece, and
Yeah.
I love that. It's such a powerful comparison and contrast, right? Because the world, I mean, we think about what we're inundated with every day is noise, right? We got noise coming at us from all different angles, just information overload. And so, what signal is something that shows up in the middle of all that noise that makes you go, wow. Okay, wait a minute. I just noticed that stood out to me. That hit, that landed, that was clear. And clarity. Clarity is the word that I'm looking for because that is the thing that we miss when it's noisy. Signal brings clarity to what's happening. So to your question about Altezza specifically, when I first started the company, it was really honestly, it was just about let's put salespeople in these companies and help them get those founders out of the sales seat. And it was really about the salespeople. It really was. It was just, hey, we got great salespeople. They're very experienced. They know how to close deals. They've been doing this for a long time. You don't have to teach them how to sell. You just got to teach them how to sell your product, your service. Let us give those people to you and do it at half the cost of a full-time employee. And everybody loved that. You had a lot of that right there, right? But then the signal that came back from that was, hey, guess what? Plugging really talented salespeople into really crappy sales systems is not going to work, right? Like, not going to
Recipe for
work.
failure.
Recipe for failure every single time. And so I remember that signal was so clear. And I remember all of us sitting on a deck at a house in Leapers Fork, Tennessee. And we were wrestling with this, and we were basically had to ask ourselves the question, do we need to become a consulting firm? Like, do we need to become a sales coaching company? Because all these businesses that have been churning are churning not because of the salesperson, not because the salesperson sucks. It's because the freaking business doesn't have the sales infrastructure needed to support that salesperson. So now do we have to go address that? So that was a huge pivotal moment for us, and that you talk about signal, we all looked at each other and I remember the answer to the question of, do we want to be a consulting firm was hell no,
No.
no.
I mean,
But
unanimous.
yeah,
No.
no, but we knew we had to fix the problem, right? It's like, okay, we don't want to be a consulting firm, so what are the other options here? But the signal was salespeople alone are not the answer to sales problems.
Yeah. And maybe this is wired within us because we are a sales company run by salespeople. And we've got I think about calibration and the way we talk about that. But this idea of pivoting and change and adapting calibration is an embedded part of our company culture. Are you comfortable, Steve, kind of talking about the next iteration that we haven't seen the end result of yet? Because we now know what happened after we made that decision and other
Yep.
decisions after that.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable maybe sharing a little bit or as much as you're comfortable sharing about the season that we're in as a company right now and the changes that we're looking to make?
Yeah. So I mean, so the outcome of that conversation in Tennessee was we need to bring in the sales leadership component in addition to the sales execution component, right? And so we started adding that piece to the team so that we could bring, and then bundling them in a sense, right? Bundling them with, so that there was some of that sales strategy work done on the front end, right? And you know what? I think that felt like a really good move. And I think it was that we saw lots of good positive outcomes from that. It was definitely a positive impact on our business. But then what happened? And this is just a perfect case study about adapting and iterating, right? Because you do something once and you go, okay, this is what's not working with that, or this is what's not perfect about that. Now let's refine it. Let's change it. Let's make it better. Okay, great. Oh, this feels really good. Whoops. Oh, there's something wrong with that too. And you learn whenever you iterate and you do the next new thing, you find out, okay, well, there's something else that we're missing. And so for us, what happened is we realized, and this is crazy to think about it because I've been in sales for so long, but essentially what we were confronted with was the reality of it's really not about just sales leadership and sales execution. It's about the revenue engine. It's the
Yeah.
whole thing. It's everything from the marketing to the lead generation to the business development to the subject matter expertise to the closer to the account man, all of that with strategy and systems wrapped around it. That's really what drives sales. And so we now are sitting in a place where we're going, okay, we have to figure out where do we fit in that engine, and what are the seats that we're going to sit in, and what are the seats we're going to let other people sit in. And that's now where we're headed. What the model is
Yeah.
basically, it's way more holistic, but it's also, to Drew's point when he was talking earlier about, somebody going, gosh, we had this great conversation with you, and now what we realize is we got a lot of work to do. That happens, right? That's good. Then that's going to happen, right? Because we're gonna surface a bunch of stuff now that a
Yeah.
smaller business is going to realize. They're going to have this aha moment and go, "Damn, we thought we could just hire a salesperson and fix all of our problems, but
It's
clearly that's
it's
not going to be it."
disruptive.
It's very
Yeah, it's
disruptive. Yes,
disruptive.
yeah.
Well, and
But I
I
love being
think,
disruptive. Like I love it
Yeah, we do.
for sure. Well, disruptive for a good end, right?
Sure.
for
I
a
think
good, yeah, not just for the sake.
one of the things that have stuck out to me out of the conversations we've been having is I mean, it's subtle if you talk about it, but it's really a big pivot. The MO, because I'm in the delivery seat with Heather on our team, right? So usually when we get a new customer, Heather and I are the first people that they see. And what we've always done is you guys sell something and you chuck it over the fence and you're like, all right, good luck delivering it. Get the right salesperson and go. But now, Steve, you use that analogy. I think it was from Predictable Success about the baseball glove. Talk a little bit about that, because what we've done, again, subtle, but rather than starting with the sale, we're actually starting with what's the outcome and working backwards from there to the sale. So talk a little bit about that baseball glove analogy from Predictable Success.
Yeah, dude, that's such a powerful analogy. And what was interesting was as we were feeling the weight of the things that were the signals that were telling us that the changes we made after the meeting in Tennessee were starting to hit a wall. It was Heather, actually. I was talking to her about it, and she and I've worked together for a long time. And she said, you should go pick up that book, Predictable Success, Steve, and read the Whitewater chapter. It's like,
Like, oh,
brilliant.
that's what's going on. Oh, yeah, we're in Whitewater.
And so I went and grabbed the book sitting on my bookshelf and opened it up and went to it, and I started reading it, and I was like, damn, okay, this is where we are. We're in Whitewater. And for those of you who've never read this book and don't understand what the hell I'm talking about, go get the book. It's worth it. It's a great book. But Whitewater is a stage that every organization goes through. And the way you get out of Whitewater is to create some new things and systems and processes and whatnot, and how it's basically kind of changing the way you do things. So anyway, that happened for us, right? And so in the Whitewater, so Craig, the question what you were asking me about, I'm talking about Whitewater, but that
Baseball
was
glove. No,
in
that's
one of
good.
what?
No, that's good. But
Yeah.
baseball glove was the prompt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the baseball glove, what he talks about there, what's happening in Whitewater is the small business grows to the point like everybody that gets a small business to the place of winning and profitability is basically almost like a bunch of superheroes all like just making stuff happen, right? You're grinding, you're doing whatever it takes to make it happen. And typically what that looks like is you got salespeople who are out there just making sales, right? They're going to go out and they're going to make a sale. And when they make the sale, they're like, I sure as hell hope we can deliver on this, but we'll let somebody else figure that out, right? It's just, let's just bring in the money, let operations figure out how to deliver on it. And that works and everybody has fun and laughs, right? But then as you scale, what happens is that begins to become a real barrier to growth. And now that all of the chaos that the sales is creating for operations is now becoming a problem, and it's slow, and basically a growth grinds to a halt. And then sales and operations are at each other's throat because the operations team or the customer success team is going, what the hell are you doing? Why did you sell to these guys? They're not even close to being a good fit. It's like, well, we needed the money. There you go. Figure it out.
Which, by the way, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I remember the first customer I ever fired. It was after one meeting, and I was like, we can't work with this guy. And I
may or may not have sold that particular one.
You worked your butt off for that deal too, man. That guy was terrible.
I did tricks. I was like spinning balls. I
remember, high fiving when we closed it. And then 2 weeks later, Craig said, I fired him. We were like, oh, damn. Well, sorry.
Gosh.
But so
he wanted to relitigate the entire contract, and he's already a customer. Like, what are we doing? Crazy. We're not doing that.
So Les McEwen calls that the heart and the kidney, right? So that's where you're living when you get into whitewater. Is the heart is sales because you're driving revenue, and the kidney is operations, but they're completely disconnected from each other. And so in between, you just have chaos. The baseball glove analogy is where it comes together like a hand. Think about a hand and glove, right? And you've got sales and operations and customer success and finance all working together in harmony with each other instead of, it's the superheroes over here in sales going out and landing deals that everybody else has to figure out how to make it work. And that goes away, and now it becomes a well-oiled machine.
Good. That's good.
And that's hard.
And Drew,
that's a hard transition to make. That's a hard transition to make, bro. I've been in that a few times, and we're in the middle of it at Altezza right now. And it's, man, dude, I need whiskey. Lots of it.
Well, Drew, you're talking to founders every day, right? What are some things that you recognize, like patterns that you see where you're like, we've got a pivot conversation coming up, whether they like it or not?
Okay. So through this process, when you're talking to people, there comes these moments where you start to ask them some specific questions. And part of it is just it's information collection, but really that information collection starts to inform kind of a bigger reality. It starts to inform kind of like, okay, where is this thing heading? And what I've noticed is a couple of the questions that I've started asking has been, okay, what is your cost of acquisition, right? So help me understand what that number is. How many leads do you get a month? How many of those convert to sales for you, to new clients? You start to go through these numbers and trying to find out. And when you talk to somebody that speaks generally, well, around 10 a month. Well, our cost of acquisition numbers are probably close to X percent or X number. Then you talk to owners who know their numbers, and you can starkly tell the difference where someone's at and what that readiness starts to look like, right? So if I think in my mind as I'm having qualifying conversations, there's almost like these check boxes that I'm going down, that as I'm asking these questions, I'm trying to figure out what is going to be a massive, Drew, why in the world did you sell this? I'm going to have to fire them, versus Drew, what a great client. How do we find more of those? Right? And part of that has to do with that process, that sales process of learning, okay, if somebody can go right to that. I asked somebody for their COGS the other day, their cost of goods sold. And I said, what's that percentage? And they're like, I don't know. I haven't looked at that. And immediately I was like,
that's a red flag.
My flag's going up. right? My flag is waving, going, "Hey, pay attention." So those are the kind of things, right? Back to your question of like, how do you know when you're talking to them? It's going, how well do you know your business? And not what you're selling, not the service, not the product, not why you got into it, right? Which is all important. That's great. But what do you know about your business? Because when we start to talk about, we were talking about the remedy and the cure and the disease, right? How am I supposed to effectively help you solve this disease if you don't even know where to start pointing, where the actual problem lies?
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
good.
is really where you start to go, okay, I think you have some more work to do. I'm not making any judgment calls. I'm not saying you're a bad leader, good leader. I'm just saying these are the things, go back and wrestle with them so that when we talk about the cure, when we talk about the solution, the service that Altezza brings to the table, now you start to connect pain. These are the real numbers. This is my problem. This is what you solve. This is where I can be. And here's the journey of how we're going to cross that gap. That all can start to make sense. And now you light up inside of that individual the whole point of why we do what we do. And that makes for a much easier conversation.
Whew.
That's
Boom.
good. That makes me think about a book. We mentioned Predictable Success. Have you guys ever read The E-Myth
Yeah.
Revisited?
That's a great book. Oh, yeah.
So the idea of the E-Myth is a lot of people start their business because they, like a graphic designer, I love designing. I'm really good at designing. I just want to design all day long. So they go and they start a business, but then they find out they're spending zero time actually designing. You start a
Yeah.
business because you love the motion of starting the business, right? If you love graphic design, go work for somebody where you're a graphic designer. If you love starting the business, you have to love part of that signal, right? Is, do they actually know the business? They might know delivery because they love that work, but they don't actually know the business.
Well, and there's a nuance happening there, Craig. I think that's really interesting to see play out because of COVID, right? COVID and now AI has flushed a bunch of people out of corporate America. Let's just call it what it is. And those people are trying to say, what do I do next? So there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that are really drawn to the idea of freedom that
No,
comes
totally.
with running my own business, right? So owning and running my own business and applying my trade and my passions in the way that I want to do it without a boss. That feels really good, right? It's like, oh my God, that'd be amazing. But then when you do start doing it and you realize, wait a minute, there's a heck of a lot more to this than just me plying my trade. That's the moment where somebody has to ask themselves, am I really cut out to be a business owner, right? And maybe even though there's maybe going back to the corporate world, if you can do it, isn't as bad as you thought it was, right? And that's a tough place
Totally.
to be, but that's the reality. But
And
I want to
there's literally nothing wrong with that either.
No, there's nothing
That's
wrong with it.
totally fine.
It's totally fine. It's just that's a reality check that a lot of people are having to experience. But I want to. Drew called out something very subtle that is absolutely a signal that every business owner and every sales leader should be listening for. So, business owner in a small context, sales leader in a larger company context. He said he was talking about as a salesperson. He was talking about having this sales conversation with this potential client, this prospect, and he's in his mind. He's going, if I sell this client or prospect, am I going to now hear about it from the delivery team? Okay, so that's a huge conflict. Let me tell you, this is a major conflict for a salesperson. If a salesperson has any integrity at all and they're having this conflict in their head, where they're going, oh man, I really need to make this sale. But if I make this sale, am I going to hear about it from delivery? Now they're trying to figure out, how do I close the deal? And if I close the deal, am I going to get in trouble? If you don't pick up on that, that's a problem. That is a
True.
major signal. That's a major
Yeah.
signal, right? Because if you have salespeople wrestling with that on a regular basis, something is off. Something is off. And
Yeah.
I would say most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, that's an ideal client profile problem, right? And that's what it was for Altezza. So because Drew
Totally.
having those thoughts in our context was because we're selling to the wrong people. And that's a big problem, right? And so, business owners who are listening to this, I'm telling you, if you have someone selling for you and they're wrestling with that, you better hit the freaking pause button and have a conversation about it, because that is a major signal.
That's so good. Well, and there's a misconception about pivoting that a pivot is starting over. Got to start, scrap it all. I got to
Hmm.
start all over. Most pivots are surgical. It's not nuclear. It's not blow the whole thing up, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
let's diagnose for a second. When sales it's not working, we've talked about some signals. What are some levers to kind of pull to test and make changes? How do we diagnose it? So ICP is one, wrong
Yeah,
customer. What are
yeah.
some other ones?
Yeah, ICP, it's probably one of the better places to start, right? Is to start with, hey, are we talking to the right people? So that, because there's so many other things that flow from that, right? So if the answer to that question is, yeah, we're selling to the right people, okay, well, what's next? What else is wrong? Is the messaging off? Like, is there no clarity in the messaging? Do they not understand the value proposition? Are we not articulating that well? Are we not proving it? Do we not have enough social proof? Like, there's all kinds of things that start to happen, but all of those things happen after you answer the question about ideal client profile. That's my thought on it. But Drew, what do
Yeah,
you think?
I
Dude,
agree. That's good.
yes, 1,010%. And honestly, it's becoming more of a learning lesson as I, go through this process with us as a team, because you know what? It's easier. It's easier to build a piece of collateral. It's easier to go into a CRM and build a system because it's very definable. It's very measurable. It's very like, yeah, okay, this was the problem. This is what we did to fix it, and now it's let it run and do its thing. Right? We needed some information. We created it. We handed it to you. But when something like ICP it can be squishy. And if it feels squishy, then you haven't landed where you need to land. It should feel sharp. It should feel direct. It should feel like a bullseye. It should feel like I can say it every single time I talk about it. But when you talk around something and it takes you 10 minutes to try to describe it, you're missing the point. And you should be able to go right for it and say the right thing. And that's where everything, then it's like, well, now all of our collateral flows from that. I remember I was talking to Steve about something where I was like, I think I have to pause working on this project here because the project is an outflow of something we need to talk about way up here. And once we get that, that's going to directly impact everything else that we need to finish out down here, right? Like the scriptings and the language and the usage and all of that stuff. And so, Steve, just to echo that, I don't know, without having experienced it like I am right now, the impact and the power behind a clearly defined ICP is a make or break.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not just it could not. It's also about specificity, right, of the ICP. Like, sometimes we could have multiple ICPs, right? Or we have a broad ICP that kind of works, but the more we narrow it down, that's what we're talking about for us right now.
Yeah.
There's this one type of business that we've kind of talked about for a long time, where we've asked ourselves the question, should that be the only people we sell to? And we're afraid to do it, right? It's kind of scary to do it, because
Yeah.
it's like, well, if we say yes to that, then we're saying no to a bunch of other stuff. That are we sure we want to do that? But the problem is, when you miss, when you don't land the plane on that, is that you lose the clarity, right? And so what you were just
Oh,
saying,
Yeah.
all the stuff you were
100%.
talking about flows from absolute clarity about who you serve. And I think
That's
that's
good.
hurt us to delay on that.
Well,
And
guys,
I would also, I'm sorry, one more thing, just real quick, because this is so important. the confidence in a salesperson to go out there and deliver all rides and falls on that right there. When it's so broad and when it's kind of like, well, it could be a lot of different things. Well, imagine being a salesperson going, okay, well, I don't know which one to choose. And when I talk to that person, what lane do they fall in? And I got to start thinking, when you nail that thing and it's there, that confidence, that boldness, that assurance, all the things that closes deals, right? Pulling out the value in that person, man, that is such a powerful gift to be able to do, but it becomes difficult when it's spread out over too many different lanes. So sorry, Craig, I had to.
Yeah. No. That's good. I think, ICP, it feels really big, but the reality is we were already speaking to the right ICP. We were just talking to too many additional people.
So good.
So it's the shift.
Yes.
To go, no, we're talking to a lot of the right people. We just need more of this type of person. It dials it in. It's a subtle shift that dials it in.
It's a focus thing, right?
Focus.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're dialing in the lens.
It's like the difference between normal definition and high definition, right? It's like when you dial it in and you go, this is the one, you've got now high definition, high clarity. And that doesn't mean
Yeah.
you say no to the other ones that are kind of out here. It just means you have a choice to make, right? You have a choice. You might say yes, you might say no,
Yeah.
but you have a choice, right?
So
And that's a position of strength too. I love that.
a couple of other, because I want to move on to a different thing, but there are more pivots, right, that people could be thinking about from a sales perspective. Pricing might need to be revisited. Your products or packages might need to be revisited. Your positioning might need to be revisited. Your team, you might need to reorient your team. Is there anything in there that kind of resonates with you guys, or anything you want to expand on within those other areas?
Well, I think lurking in all that what you just said was the issue of sales process complexity. Um, so a lot of the things that you talked about will show could they create sales process complexity. And so what I mean by that is that there's places in the sales process where you start to see people kind of lose their mojo. Like the prospects were leaning in, and then they start to go, wait a minute, I'm not sure. I need to talk to somebody. And that a lot of times that's a result of you making things too damn complicated in the sales process. So lay in there. That could be lurking in all the things you talked about. And sometimes the problem with, okay, do I have the right person in the right seat? Maybe yes, maybe no. But the key is to be looking at what are the things that might be creating complexity for that person in terms of being able to move deals across the finish line, right? And so it's okay.
Yeah.
We learned that. That's why we're changing our products and pricing, right? That's why we're changing
Yeah.
everything, because we sat there and it's like a frog in the freaking kettle, right? We just kept this is the problem with iteration. Sometimes as you iterate, and then all of a sudden you created Frankenstein, and no one wants to mess with Frankenstein.
So just to kind of wrap this conversation, because I mean, honestly, we could talk about this for a lot longer. What does it actually take practically to make a pivot, to reinvent sales? If you think about, what do I need to say to my team? What do I need to say to my customers? What do I need to say to myself? Doing the math, right? Like the cost of all of this, what you keep versus what you let go. What kind of stands out to you guys? How does somebody start to actually move and get the courage to make the pivot, the adjustments, reinvent sales the way they need to within their business?
You know what, Craig? This is not a cop out. I honestly want to put it back on you, because you've sat there in the operations seat and watched this happen for us. So tell us from your seat that you're sitting in, how do you do that well?
Damn it, I was asking the questions.
Too bad.
Okay, so I think there's an element of culture, trust, team that's involved here. At the end of the day, like, the buck has to stop somewhere. So yeah, if you're the founder, the main leader, you're going to have to make the decision. But if you've built the right type of culture, you're leaning on more data points than just yourself. So really talking to your team openly about what's not working, why it's not working, getting their feedback. I think that in every stage that we've gone through iterations on, that has been a consistent aspect of it. We have very openly talked as a team without fear of somebody's job being on the line, or very openly about what's happening. Because I also think we see things through a similar lens. And we did this early on. Maybe this is easier for us because we are a sales company, but one of our soapboxes that we would teach our customers early on is everybody sits in a revenue seat. Every single person on your team is in a sales seat. And the reason is because the point is for us to serve people well, right? And that starts from the first time they hear about us to when they get a bill from us to when they have an email from us. The way we treat people really matters. And so I think our team innately takes ownership of the entire customer experience and customer journey, the buyer journey included within that. That's a big deal. Listening to everybody, their perspectives and what they're experiencing, and then coming to the table, not just like bitching and complaining about stuff, but with the intent to solve the problem.
Yeah.
That, I think, makes a huge difference. I don't know, anything in that resonate with you guys, or anything else stand out to you?
Yeah, I would add in, if your team doesn't have some stake in ownership, and I don't mean like a part of equity in the company, but if they don't have something to own, and it's more than just own your job or own your role, it's I am deeply connected to the outcome of somebody that I sell to, because to be honest with you, I'm on the front side of this relationship. Rarely do I get to experience the backside of the relationship. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't understand that, know that, be connected to that. So for instance, we sold a client and, now they've been a part of it now for several months with us. And I'm now part of a rainmaking council. For those of you who don't know, that's just a place where we allow people to come in and we share introductions. Hey, I'd like to be introduced to here. And so, hey, I know somebody, let me make that introduction. I am now in front of that person I sold to. And so it's not just you see them and then you never see them again. My point in saying that is there is a deep connection that I choose to put myself a part of, to make sure that on the front end, I want to make sure that everything I communicate, that everything that I do, that it's going to remain true well beyond the decision to say yes. And that whenever we run into each other, there is this, hey, thanks for not overselling me, or thanks for not whatever the reason may be. I can look you in the eyes. Okay, all of that to say, I think a really key point is this vesting into the process, to the company, and going, I and Altezza are right. I don't just come here to collect a paycheck, clock in, clock out. This is who I am. And when you get that kind of buy-in, man, that changes so many different things and experiences and how you, I guess, engage with that. So,
dang, dude, that's so good, man. I feel like, Craig, this is what a great place to go in terms of, I don't know if you're close to landing the plane on this conversation or not, but this is really good. So Drew, what you're talking about there is, again, so critical. It's so helpful, I think, for people to hear the sales professional's perspective on what it feels like to be sitting in a situation where maybe there's a little bit of chaos, maybe things aren't going exactly the way they need to be, but yet you still feel the belief and the hope that we talked about earlier on, and you still are pushing forward because you feel the safety, and you have the belief in what the company is doing, and you know that if you bring something to the table about what's working or not working, your job is not in jeopardy. And you also know that in salespeople, we all live in this world of what have you done for me lately? And no one, let me tell you what, no one else in any company lives with that other than salespeople. We are the only people who live with that pressure of what have you done for me lately? And it wears you out, right? It's hard.
It's a heavy burden to carry at times.
But we're good with it. We lean into it, right? Because we're up for it. We're here for it, but it's still difficult. And if we have that pressure combined with lack of safety and the lack of freedom to bring things to the table that we're observing and seeing, or the fear that if I make the sale and then I encounter the customer later on and they look at me like you're a dirtbag, man, that's just not a good place to be at all. So I'm really glad you brought that up. And I think the last thing I'll say, Craig, about all of this, and this is speaking directly to the founder. And if I'm talking to a founder, what I would say to you, when things aren't going the way you want to, and you think you need to make a change, the worst thing you can do is just indiscriminately cut loose those salespeople who've been out there representing your brand, the ones who've been laying it on the line for you, to just cut them loose because the numbers aren't where you want them to be. Is if you do that, you deserve to crash and burn. That's just me talking to you bluntly. That's what you get. You get what you deserve, crash and burn, because that's no way to treat those people. And those people have incredible intelligence and incredible insight about what's working and what's not working. So you better freaking listen to them. And you better create an environment where they feel not like if they don't perform, they're going to get fired. But if they don't perform, they can come to you and say, this is what's working and this is what's not working. Let's talk about it. Let's fix it. Let's do it together. And if you create that culture, you will win. If you don't, you will churn and burn. Period.
Well freaking said.
Well, guys, final thoughts before we wrap with a toast. And King Snake, of course, you're up in a second here. So closing thoughts. Change always is happening all around us. And if you're listening to this podcast, whether you're a founder, a business leader, somebody else, like, change is going to happen in your life, in your business, all the time. Signal is always there before you're ready to actually see it. And so start to pay attention. And remember, when you pivot, it's surgical, not nuclear. You don't have to blow everything up and start over. You're making little pivots. And to the founders, pivoting at the right time is where you win. If you pivot too early, you're going to lose out on potential return. But if you pivot too late, it's really tough to steer the Titanic, right? Like, it's going down. It's tough to change course at that point. You have to figure out that right time, and little adjustments help you do that. Little adjustments help you do that. It's not as dangerous to change little things so that you don't have to make big sweeping changes later. Guys, any final thoughts as we wrap?
Well said.
No, man, I think that's great.
All right, Drew, wrap us up. You're up. Toast.
I've been thinking about this one. To the founders, realizing the January plan isn't May reality. To the moment when hope stops working and honesty takes over. And to the leaders willing to change course before it's too late. Here's to reinvention and making the next 8 months count. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well done. As always, King Snake.
Guys, King Snake, that is the episode. So here is where I'm landing. Every founder or leader that we've had on this show had one thing in common. Somewhere along the way, they admitted that the plan wasn't working and they changed it. Some of them changed their product. Some of them changed their customer. Some changed themselves. None of them called it pivoting because that can make a founder flinch, but that's really what it was. They were reinventing themselves. You've got 8 months left, less than 8 months left in 2026. That is just over 2 quarters. That is enough time to change your year. Or enough time to ride a broken plan all the way into December and tell yourself it was the market. The choice is genuinely yours, and you're making it whether you realize it or not. So if you're sitting with the dashboard right now and you're watching the numbers that aren't moving and your gut is telling you that the plan needs to change, your gut is probably right. The cost isn't the pivot. The cost is the next 90 days you spend pretending you didn't hear it. And if part of what you're hearing is that sales motion is broken, that you can't be everywhere, that the founder-led model has hit its ceiling, that's exactly what we built Altezza for. We embed fractional professionals, sales talent, who help founders pivot the sales engine without blowing up the rest of the business. We're not the nuclear option. Subscribe, share this with the founder who you know has been stuck in the one more quarter for about 4 quarters too long, and we will see you next round. Pour one out for the plan, pour a new one in for the next 8 months. Cheers.
Hell yeah.